I wish for real-time Pokemon battles in Pokemon Legends ZA. Huh. Did anyone feel anything just now? Hey look, real-time Pokemon battles in Pokemon Legends ZA. Ugh. No. No. No! If you think you wanted real-time action Pokemon battles in any main series Pokemon game, actually pay attention to what's going on here. And think again. Because this is awful when you really look at what's going on here. And if you don't see what's bad about it, I'm going to spell it out. Watch our trainer, watch the Pokemon. Our Pokemon follows us. Our Pokemon dodging attacks is bound to the trainer, and you can really see it in this next clip. Vivillon is practically hugging us. Our Pokemon are within proximity of us as attacks are flying out. There is no, like, other way or other command that we can see. And also, like, look around the screen. I'm even going to hide myself for a bit. It doesn't look like there's a dodge button. Heck, even Pokemon Quest had a dodge button. And then our character, we're just bumbling around and our Pokemon's following us. And that's how we're expected to get out of the way of attacks. And then it's just, like, clunky back and forth. And this, right here, is egregious. In what world has a Pokemon battle on a Pokemon field ever taken place where the trainer is in the field and not on the sidelines commanding their Pokemon? Why isn't that a part of the real-time battle system? And then that made me realize you actually can't have a real-time battle system, or else it gets too complicated where, like, you're controlling the trainer to get a camera angle with one side of the controller, and then you're moving around and dodging with the Pokemon on the other while inputting commands and inputting attacks and swapping out Pokemon. So we see in the bottom left that there's, like, you use the up and down buttons. So you have to move left and right with your trainer, and then you have to go off the joystick to the up and down, like, actual D-pad, and then that's how you swap your Pokemon. No idea what the trigger buttons do. I guess the right joystick is going to, like, be camera controls, and then you're just kind of throwing out attacks, which have random cooldown shenanigans, like that Rock Slide, Stun Pyroar, and then the meter fills up pretty quick. So what is that? 3-second, 4-second cooldown on a move that can stun? And the enemies are also spamming us down as well. It uses Flamethrower, and then we got a couple of seconds, and then it uses Flamethrower. Also, switching a Pokemon seems to be pretty detrimental because it goes through, like, an opening cry battle animation. So, like, bro, even if you're trying to give it the benefit of doubt, like, well, the game comes out later this year. I mean, the game is mostly done. It's just going to be a few more months of, like, maybe polishing the game and then testing it and then shipping. And by the time that happens, like, we're 3 months, like, the game is finished 3 months out from release. So what little development time is left isn't even going towards development. It's going to bug fixing, polishing the game, getting optimization, and, like, updating textures and stuff, which we have seen from Pokemon X and Y trailers. So this is most likely 90% of the battle system, where you dodge for your Pokemon, you have, like, a weird aim lock, and then just, like, things just kind of happen. Oh man, the strategy of setting up a Stealth Rock, which actually seems to have a longer cooldown than other moves into an already attacking Pokemon. That is the peak skill expression of Pokemon Legends ZA, which is not even, like, action commands at all. It was really funny watching fake gamers that have never played an action game before or anything that requires dexterity saying, wow, look how difficult Pokemon Legends Arceus is, or, like, these are real mechanics. It's like, bro, Mario Odyssey bosses have more mechanics. So yeah, my philosophy on real-time Pokemon battles is that's not why you play Pokemon. Pokemon is turn-based strategy. That is why Pokemon has become the largest franchise in the world. That is why the first games were so successful, and that is why Pokemon can keep doing that and only find success. Pokemon Sword and Shield, 26 million sold. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, 26 million sold. Legends ZA, I think it's, like, struggling to get 11 million, maybe 12. The lowest selling main series Pokemon game, and, like, one of the worst selling Game Freak developed games of all time. Something like this needs to be reserved for spin-off games. Why didn't we just get a Pokemon Ranger game instead that takes place in Kalos? That would have been way more exciting and give you a lot more freedom on, like, how the systems go and how the character is supposed to play out. So they just like listened and said like, oh, this is what the fans want without having any kind of idea about it. And a big problem really shows that our trainer doesn't do anything and we don't really have full control over our Pokemon, which makes me realize, yeah, Palworld does it better. So it's not that I don't like action combat. I really enjoy Palworld's combat, but that's because everyone is doing something. You can be strategic with your partner switches, and your team compositions really matter, and then you also just have to have skill to land all of your shots and be able to manage all the cooldowns and attacks going on at you. And then playing Palworld makes me realize, this is not for Pokemon. This isn't what Pokemon should be or should have, again, unless it's like a very dedicated spin-off game, but Pokken Tournament failed. And that's about as close as you're gonna get. And even if you try to like reduce it into more like, oh, but this is an attack power on a cooldown kind of thing, you're not going to meet in between, and you're not going to have a battle system that makes sense unless it's, again, way too many buttons where it's like you have a trainer dodge and a Pokemon dodge, or if your trainer is on the sidelines where they should be, well then the camera is going to get weird. Also, that means maybe you have your trainer walking around the arena and trying to get a camera angle while you're also still trying to control a Pokemon, and then using all the buttons. Yeah, those spider hip fingers aren't going to be fun. And again, now we're bringing dexterity into play, when Pokemon, that's one of the beautiful things about competitive Pokemon, is that if you do have dexterity issues, that is not supposed to be a part of Pokemon's skill ceiling or skill expression. That's not like League of Legends with crazy mechanics and reaction time and hands, or FPS where like your accuracy to the smallest little pinpoint movement, or being able to like read people and control recoil. You don't need any of that for Pokemon. It's purely strategy. And that's another problem, is that Pokemon's entire systems have been built around 29 years of strategy for the turn base. So now they're just kind of shoving the same moves and the same stats, because actually the hit points seem to line up with a Pokemon of that level. You can see it with Chikorita. Level 15 Chikorita with like 20 hit point IVs is going to be 43 health, I believe, or something around that. So like, these are Pokemon stats, these are Pokemon battles, and now they're just kind of being like shoved into real time with maybe some funkiness going on with the damage formula. Because that was also what made Pokemon Legends Arceus ass, is that like you use moves you're familiar with damage and levels you're familiar with, and then you just do less. You can even like strong style, and it feels like you hit less than that move just in a normal Pokemon battle. It's like changing up the damage formula arbitrarily to force this clunky system to work, just to make it different. And then it also makes me wonder about like dominant strategy, where like if I just move my trainer to the left while spamming Stockpile or Iron Defense or something, and then I just sit there behind like spammable moves with low cooldown, what happens? Like, I don't know. I feel like, because again, it's a kid's game, and as we saw Pokemon Legends Arceus, like Pokemon Legends Arceus was more babied down than Pokemon Let's Go. Just getting your handheld and having the characters go, ah, every couple seconds, Pokemon are terrifying creatures. And having movement and action that makes Mario 64 feel like Dark Souls. Yeah, like everything got dumbed down and weird. So it shows you can't really make these systems work. And then again, like, it's cool the moves act differently. I like Stealth Rocks being an actual trap. I can see that happening with spikes and other like stuns and trying to time those things. But this does seem like a clunky and careless system that isn't even going to allow for that skill expression and doesn't have the movement tools, because it would be like too much to juggle on the Nintendo Switch controller, also with however Pokemon and Game Freak have set this up. Also, Monster Hunter exists. Game Freak shouldn't even attempt action combat, because Monster Hunter has already taken Game Freak's lunch before he's arrived to school. And that also shows some other problems, because our trainer is never involved in combat. So it's like, okay, we need to have primary control over the Pokemon. And if we're trying to do this thing where we're a trainer, well, in Monster Hunter, you have pets, and you have mounts, and you have companions, and they do their own things inside of combat for support. You can't have an action Pokemon game like how you expect. And y'all want a throwback? Kindred Fates. And I love what the game was going for. It's like, yo, we got open world, edgy, adult Pokemon. That's going to be awesome. But what I didn't like about it was the combat. I kind of saw like the open world, you have to skill shot the combat kind of thing. I'm like, man. But again, it's not why I play competitive Pokemon. I play competitive Pokemon for that immense strategic depth, team building, moveset finding. So it also makes me wonder how the movesets are going to go for Pokemon. Do the movesets matter? if you're just going to be spamming attacks on cooldown for the largest, easiest effects. Also, I haven't kept up with Kindred Fates at all. I don't know how good or terrible the project is going, and if the combat ended up being a big problem that people didn't like about the game. And even then, regardless of how good or bad the combat alpha or beta or wherever Kindred Fates has ended up, they at least did it more right than Pokemon did at Pokemon's own game. So, like, if this is where battles are, and then, yeah, you're doing, like, targets, skill shots, it's a lot about dodging. And maybe this is where it's, like, as you realize, oh, if we had Pokemon Control and it was, like, a fighting game, then, yeah, it's just, like, dodge spam, and then you just land your one, like, wombo move. Problem. That's the core gameplay loop. So if you thought catching a Pokemon just once wasn't enough for Pokemon Legends Arceus, which also still upsets me because people got mad at me. I read the Pokemon website where it said catching a Pokemon once isn't enough, and people said, you're lying, Felicify, you're wrong. Because that sounds really bad, but the cognitive dissonance won't allow them to accept any faults with Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's an open world spin-off game after all, give Game Freak a break. And then people say, oh, you can't have any opinions about Pokemon Legends ZA, we only have one trailer. Bro, we have a good amount of the core gameplay, and flashbang warning, you can read the once again, reading the website makes you realize this game is not going to be good. The wild zones don't make any sense. Pokemon Sword and Shield came out in 2019. Oh god, 6 years from when this game releases. That's kind of crazy. And yet we're getting a downgraded wild area after we got total open world for the first time in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So yeah, this is supposed to be an effort to help humans and Pokemon share the city. So you give wild Pokemon like a quarter acre and you can just lick it clean of all the Pokemon in the area. And then make them your allies. You can catch wild Pokemon living in the zones or out and about in the city. Why are we not exploring regions? Why don't we actually get a real Pokemon game? By aiming the Pokeball and letting it fly. It's the same broken mechanics as Pokemon Legends Arceus. The catching system did not work. If you can't accept that, you're not being honest. The catch rates were artificially lowered, the Pokeball effectiveness was just bad, and even if you did something like you snuck up and you got like a max range throw, oh, guess what? Even though your Pokeball hit the Pokemon and the Pokemon reacted, you were too far, so it just doesn't count. And if you try to like go into the auto-targeting too fast, it just spikes the Pokeball anyways. So if you're like trying to be slick, you know, you hide in the bush and then you dodge and then you get out of sight and then like you do all this stuff and you throw the Pokeball, it just fails. Because you can't have the game be too easy if you're doing everything right. That was pretty much like Pokemon Legends Arceus. It just arbitrarily punished you if you were trying to actually be a gamer. If the Pokemon doesn't pop back out of the ball, you've caught it. Some Pokemon will flee immediately if they spot you. Because stealth mechanics and sneaking up on Pokemon has been so fun and enjoyable for the last decade. So hide out of sight to approach from behind. See, guys, use that card as cover, and that means you're a gamer. So hide out of sight or approach from behind to make yourself harder to notice. You can also battle them to lower their hit points, making them easier to catch. Which brings us back to the battling system, where again, if you watch the gameplay, this is ugly and awful. Also, it makes me wonder, like, oh, the spam catching of Pokeballs and then the crafting gameplay loop. We finally got crafting in Pokemon with Pokemon Legends Arceus, even though we had it technically with the Cramomatic. And then you just spend half your time farming stuff and then making Pokeballs that don't work. Real cool. So yeah, you get it. And who knows how the registration is going to go or how many Pokemon you have to catch to clear an area or whatever the story thing is, because there's like disturbances, incidents. So incidents randomly happen, we go to wild zones, something story progression. Oh, that sounds like the same awful gameplay loop from Pokemon Legends Arceus. Great. And if you're having a hard time catching one, have one of your Pokemon use its moves. So like, I guess it's nice that we can actually KO the Pokemon, that maybe it doesn't immediately get one shot, because like that thing's on 0 health. So you have like a little bit of a stun time, maybe before it fades away or runs away or faints or something. And then that's going to help with the catch rates. Like finally, the one thing Pokemon players have want, but you have to like pull teeth to get it. And that's also while doing the clunky battle system. So remember, you're going to be moving around, dodging attacks, and maybe this is why there actually can't be a proper system, because one of the controls are like, is something's going to be like switching Pokeballs, switching to Pokeballs. There's a B cancel down here, so that also means like the Pokeball throwing. So you're having to strafe around, kite, attack, and then you pull up the Pokeball menu, and that's why you don't have full autonomy, because now there's just too many buttons. You don't have full autonomy over your Pokemon, or your trainer just kind of gets in the way. So your Pokemon, like, I just don't understand how anyone thinks this is good when you just watch it and your Pokemon is just kind of glued to you. See, like, look at that. We back up. We have to drag our Pokemon out of attacks unless we, like, set up something. Like, unless we protect or put up a barrier or do something else. But other than that, like, we run around. And we didn't even use... See, the strategy here feels more like Palworld, where it's like, oh, that's a bad attack coming my way. I should pull Vivillon out of that. No, we actually have to run away. And then while we're doing that, we can recall the Pokemon. So recalling actually doesn't dodge, because to run away to get to the safe place to recall, your Pokemon's already out of the attack, unless it's like a very big range. And then, I guess, like, because it's a kid's game, you can't fault the children too much. It's like, yeah, you have enough wind-up. You have enough to react to here. But don't call this game difficult, or don't try to add or pretend that you're actually doing something action-y inside of this game. So it's, again, like, very telegraphed, very basic stuff. And then that just makes it feel clunkier and weak. And that seemed to be high level with level 44 and just spamming Flamethrower at you as you're running around doing whatever. And then that brings us to the Mega Combat, which also shines a light as to how weird this entire system is going to be. So that Flaffy battle, let's just say catching a Pokemon just once isn't enough. I mean, notice how they have to skip. We're already deep into this battle, that we've already ran around with clunkiness and something so long and ugly that they don't even want to show it for their gameplay. We do that just for a little progression. So it seems like the multi-catch mode or the multi-combat mode or just like the chain fighting is going to be tied to the Megas. We don't really know how that system is going to work because, yeah, on the bottom right, you can see, oh, it's draining. So you get Mega Energy somehow. Maybe it just restores over time. Maybe there's effects. Maybe there's items. That can actually be pretty cool, where you have like customization over this as though it is a mana bar or some kind of resource meter. And then we can make some observations that, like, yeah, you can use this to just one-shot Pokemon, one-shot trainers that are in your way, use that to, like, clear out enemies a lot faster, but you only get that in bursts, depending on, like, your Mega Meter. And also, there's different kinds of attacks. So using Bulldo causes an AoE that hits all the Trubbish. So if you're trying to catch multiple Pokemon or clear out an incident where there's a lot of Pokemon attacking you or that need to be settled down, then yeah, you can do that, and then you can use your Mega Meter to make it more effective, and then you go catch, 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 except like, oh, throw a Pokeball, it fails. What happens if it fails on like a 0 health? Does it just despawn and that's the end of the encounter? That'd be really fun too. And that also kind of brings me back to like the weirdness of the battle, where like we're not a trainer on the side controlling our Pokemon. We already saw that with auto battling, so it's like, oh, why don't we just send in our Pokemon and have full control over our Pokemon? Well, that's because our trainer has to be close enough to step in and throw a Pokeball. So there's no like backing up and playing from the sidelines. That's why the battle system is broken and doesn't work for Pokemon. Now, in like full-on trainer battles, again, why don't they change it? Because we can see that some of these are trainer battles, yet it's the same mechanics. Again, we're not going to the other side of the court and then dueling out our Pokemon in some kind of different camera where our trainer has nothing to do with it and we're just full-on controlling the Pokemon. No, they don't give us that, so it actually just completely sucks. Can we see experience on this one? Yeah, there we go. See, those numbers make sense. It's like trainer battle KOs. That's what you want to see. But then like wild Pokemon, yeah, so I guess that also means like some areas are going to be, actually they're not areas. You can't call it wild area. That's too big. Some of these zones are just going to be like completely throwaway. You catch your 5 Fletchling to get your Pokedex or whatever incident experience you need, and then you already have Fletchling registered, so you just never come back to this. You fill out your Pokedex and that's done. And there's like no other reasoning. Maybe like resource drops would be cool. That's what makes RPGs so much more interesting, or survival games where like, yeah, you can go to a lower area, you can completely wipe it out, but then you use that for resources, or maybe there's like some kind of experience edge to that. With Pokemon, and what I hate about Pokemon Legends Arceus is that it feels like they clamp it down because you're not allowed to have any fun and you're not allowed to do anything to the systems. If you actually have skill and experience in other games, it trivializes what Game Freak is going for, so they just hard cap it, which makes the game feel so much worse. That like, yeah, I just KO'd a Garbodor and like 2 Trubbish. I should get more than 20 experience, regardless of whatever the level differential is, and it should bring something to my Pokemon or my team. And the only thing that might be interesting is the efficiency from Mega Evolution to kind of farm things out. There's also areas where it seems like they kind of fall short. Like, why even show this? If this is what they don't, if this is what they clearly don't want you doing, why show it? Oh, Power Up Punch is back also on Mega Kangaskhan. I guess that means there's actually no like, I just confirmed that there's no multiplayer in Pokemon Legends ZA, so you don't even get to, like, battle other people with this new battle system because Power Up Punch exists. I'm not, like, hard confirming that, but that would be funny if it shows, like, yeah, this is purely single player, and also maybe it's, like, I don't get it, because, like, are they actually trying to make it too easy, where, like, oh yeah, you just get Mega Energy, you Mega, you spam moves, and then you just auto-win the entire game. Or if you know what to look for, this is just the cheese strat that auto wins the game, and then we have to just kind of deal with all this other stuff. Like, why level 52? Like, do you just get that over leveled in the game naturally? Are things just that auto win? Because, like, yeah, sure, it's a super effective hit, like Stone Edge, non-stab, Mega Absol, Altaria's just gone, so something happened here. I do like how snappy it is. Once a Pokemon's down, it's on to the next Pokemon, or the battle's over, and, like, that's just it. So I think the transitions are kind of clean when you have just, like, open world interactive Pokemon like this, but this isn't Pokemon. This shouldn't be happening inside of a main series game, and I think this shows, like, is this the best Game Freak can do? If it is, then that means just, yeah, you asked for something that Game Freak couldn't deliver with real-time Pokemon battles. Or if this is just kind of the best that it can be done after months of testing and multiple iterations, that this is the only way it can feel slightly good. That also shows, like, yeah, Pokemon actually cannot work for real-time Pokemon battles, at least on the Nintendo Switch. Unless you're, like, mouse and keyboard, but then also, like, FPS have controllers and whatever stuff for that. And also, the more you look at this gameplay, the more you realize, yeah, you actually cannot ever have this battle style, or, like, real-time Pokemon battles be good, because then it just gets spammy. Like, let's say you were a trainer and you bounce to the edge of the battlefield, and then you have, like, full control over your Pokemon. Well, then you're just spamming dodge, and then you need a stamina meter, and now that's a new stat that you have to introduce with your Pokemon, depending on, like, cooldown spamming or strafing and the moves. That means there's only going to be, like, certain usable moves, and then PvP. And that means PvP just becomes a fighting game instead of, like, a new strategic Pokemon battle where, hey, it's just Pokken Tournament. And not enough people liked Pokken Tournament to keep that game alive. So it turns out, this is what you wanted, and what you wanted was stupid. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.